So following Gilbert Burns getting slimed out by Mike Malott, he has decided to retire. And Gilbert Burns is one where, honestly, I really liked Gilbert Burns. I thought he was a very talented fighter. I thought he was, a monster on the ground. Stand-up was underrated in my opinion. I think there was a sort of consensus that Gilbert Burns couldn't really do anything on the feet. But I felt him against Usman, he showed that he's got a pretty decent stand-up game. And he's been match made against tough guys, against some of the best guys in the UFC he's fought. At his weight class, he had a good run, a number of good wins, fought for the title, lost the title, but still, even after he lost the fight to Usman, he was still very much in the mix at the top of the division. It wasn't until they started putting him against, the Bilal Muhammad's, the Sean Brady's, the likes of them, and they beat Gilbert Burns pretty handedly, and sort of shown that when he was losing to those guys were sort of the new guard at 170 in terms of being at the top of the division. Then he loses to Michael Morales, gets sort of beat down pretty badly by Michael Morales. And again, Michael Morales is a guy who's a young guy, up and coming contender. Like I said, young, physically huge for 170. You look at where each guy was at the point of their career when they fought. You had Michael Morales, who's a surging star, and Gilbert Burns, who's really trying to hold on to his former glory and probably is on his way out. And you just put him against each other, and you see what you see. I don't think anyone that knows Michael Morales was surprised with what we saw. We saw a guy who looked huge in there, looked a weight class bigger than Gilbert Burns in there. Gilbert Burns looked like a small, slow old man in there, and Morales really made him pay. Michael Malott, but again, I say those losses, lost to Brady, lost to Bilal Muhammad. There's another guy he lost to who name's eluding me right now. Then he loses to Michael Morales. Those four losses, there's nothing to be ashamed of, in my opinion, of those losses. Like, those guys were at top of the division. Michael Morales, wasn't top of the division. Is on his way to hopefully making it there to the top of the division. But even now, as of now, hasn't made it there and was on his way. Do you know what I mean? Surging contender. But the three fights previous where he lost, top of the division. Then he loses to a surging contender. Then he loses to Michael Malott. And you can sort of see each time he's losing, the level was just getting worse and worse and worse. So yeah, shame for Gilbert Burns. We've seen him be, outsized, outmanned, beat down in some of these recent losses. But again, you look at the 5-fight loss streak that he's on, only 2 of those, to be fair, they are the most recent 2 where you're like, okay, yeah, these are bad losses. But that's the nature of the game. And honestly, Gilbert Burns probably should have retired before this, but it's tough because when you're in there and you're losing to Sean Brady, you're losing to Bilal, you're like, you can justify that to yourself. You're like, well, I lost, but these guys are on top of the division, right? And then you're losing to Michael Morales, you're like, okay, well, this guy's absolutely huge. You can sort of, again, another one you can sort of justify to yourself, but getting slimed out by Michael Malott, in the 3rd round, yeah, probably time to call it a day. And that's what he's done. So respect to Gilbert Burns. Like I said, a fighter, in my opinion, is underrated. A monster on the ground, underrated stand-up as well. You saw that against Usman. But yeah, hell of a career. Unfortunately, wasn't able to capture the World Championship. Great win over Tyron Woodley, but that was after Woodley had lost the belt. He then fights Usman and loses to Usman, and that ends up, I believe, that's his only world title shot. But a decent career for Gilbert Burns, and hopefully he's set financially. Hopefully he would have got paid decent money for that world title fight, and he's been able to make that last. And of course, he's still got his podcast with Moicano. I think they're still doing that. I don't know if that podcast is still even going. Hopefully it is. And they can keep doing their thing over there. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of Gilbert Burns' career and what do you think of him retiring. Let me know in the comments below. Another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.